We're here to talk about how to use remote go-to-market strategy as a way of starting your international expansion. We all know that with COVID, companies do not want to spend money hiring, sending people off into the hinterlands until they know that it's worth it. They know that the payoff is there, and they know that the risks aren't so great that it will disrupt the payoff. So we're going to talk about how to add value and do it in a low-risk approach. And we're going to do this basically considering projects that we've worked on over the years and trying to bring those to the fore. First of all, what is a go-to-market strategy? So a go-to-market strategy generally is something that's going to help you to define your customers, to coordinate your messaging, position your product, and it basically is going to help you ensure that whatever you're doing, the unit economics of what you're doing are going to be strong. These are generally used for companies that have existing products going into new markets. So you've got a great regional play, you've got customers in Europe, but you want to have US customers, or maybe you've got a couple US customers, but you really haven't thought about why they came to you and what it is that you need to do to get more of them. Or you're taking a new product and you're trying to grow it out. So today we'll be talking a little bit about four activities. So we'll talk about go-to-market discovery, so how you discover your go-to-market strategy. We'll talk about building a global strategy and selecting markets. We'll talk about video sales letters. This took me many years to figure this out, but I'm pretty much convinced that video sales letters that are very well written and are very thoughtful in terms of taking the feedback from the markets you're trying to enter and understanding the sub questions that pop up in the executives' heads when you pitch them, and they don't tell you that, but there are these questions, and we all do it because we're critical beings. But understanding what those perspectives are and really architecting them into your videos, especially now when we don't travel as much, video has become an incredibly powerful tool. And I think that if maybe the last 15, 20 years has been a revolution in B2C, I think this is the core beginnings of the revolution in B2B. Inbound versus outbound as well. I'll talk a little bit about that and the role that plays in this process here. So 3 fun tactics. These, to me, if you walk away with 3 little thorns in your brain that you sort of ponder or think about later, these would be 3 of those things that I would say to walk away with. One is called interruption. So not disruption, but interruption. And interruption is where you're getting into the mind of your buyer and you're challenging some of their core beliefs. So you're really changing how they think. And if you understand the 2 or 3 core beliefs that your prospects have that are fundamental to enabling a sale, then you're going to understand their center of gravity, and you're going to make it a lot easier to penetrate and get across the membrane into that organization. Pre-location. So getting knowledge in front of your clients, even when your competition has 20x more funding than you do, or has 2 times more people than you do. How do you get your knowledge in front of your clients, both in the physical world, but also in the virtual or the remote world? And preemption. How do you begin before the game has begun? Usually, I'm not sure how many people think that they're in markets that are mature, where their product is surrounded by lots of competitors, and they're having to really look at the differentiation of their product. How many companies feel that they're in the markets that are immature, where they're actually the only game in town, but they're spending a lot of time educating the customer on what this is? How many people feel like the timing is sort of perfect, they're right there in the market and they're really nailing it? So yes, it's pretty tough to get it exactly perfectly right? But there are different traits of what happens when you're going into different types of mature markets. And the message that I have, and I'll give some examples later, is that in general, preemption is generally a better strategy if you can kind of get in there and begin soft pedaling your sales a little bit early. The other thing is I'm a big sort of sideline fan of machine learning. I've worked with about 20 machine learning companies on the business side. I mean, I was in product development before, but again, I was the product manager, so I wasn't the engineer building it. I worked with the engineering team, but I really like this idea of learning. And that the things that's changing in machine learning right now is the fact that you have imitation learning, imitation learning where you're learning from demonstration, and you have reinforcement learning where you're learning through experience. And what I think we're trying to do here today is really impress upon you that you can use both of these techniques as a startup. You know, you can use imitation learning by using practices that other people have used and just skip to the point. You can do things also by practicing and testing the market and tuning things so that they fit appropriately to you. So these are all concepts that I love, these concepts, and they all come from mobility strategy. I mean, I don't want to bring up the Ukraine stuff too much, but you can see the amazing things they're doing in Ukraine through mobility strategy and very, you know, just smart, agile activities, and startups have got to be working in that way as well. So introduction. So again, my name is Chris Mott. I'm the founder of globalventure.com. We've been around for about, well, 5-6 years doing growth consulting. I am challenged with getting our name out. It's difficult to get out there. There's a lot of noise in the market. What I hope to learn today is what you guys are doing and ways that we can apply some of these techniques to what you're doing. Would anyone else like to, actually, let's do it this way. Since we don't have a lot of time, why don't you guys turn to the people next to you, so the people to your left, to your right, in front and back, and just do these things really briefly. So introduce yourself and talk about what challenges you face and what you're hoping to learn today. So go ahead and do that with each other. And to close out your discussion, get started again. Yeah, it's always nice. It's always nice to get to other people. It's probably a lot of you guys know each other, actually. But anyway, although I would really like to take the time to go through these with each and every one of you, trust me, I really would, because it gives me a better feeling for what I should talk about. For now, I'd like to just focus on the last question of what you hope to learn today. So can people just maybe tell me what some of the things that they're hoping to learn today? And if you didn't talk about this and you can think of something, you can also say it. So please, let's get a little list here. Yes.
So we are implementing remote sales in Mexico.
Yes.
And so we would like to confirm if our go-to-market is close to correct or
yes,
correct that.
Yeah, there you go. Like how to do it and not spend a lot of money. Okay, that's great. Yeah, that's perfect example. I could, just go on that one alone. But any other scenarios, things you guys that are a pain in your rear end, or things that you struggle with or your team struggles with. Imagine yourself 3 years from now with your company. Has it been frictionless? Was it completely a cakewalk, or were there some obstacles? What are the obstacles?
We are going to expand internationally by creating an international network of partners.
Okay, so you have partnerships.
Yeah. Would like to have 20, 30 partners in Europe representing us and selling our robots. So validation of that approach is something interesting.
Oh, wow. Okay, good.
Same in US.
Yeah. Okay. Good. Anything else, guys? Yes.
Yes, pretty much similar like the first two, maybe add on to look at different ways of how to approach the markets.
Yeah.
One was opening the office, the other partnership, 37 sales agents. How to do completely remote and steal some good ideas implementing in our business.
All right. Yeah, those are all very, I think, in the wheelhouse of things that we should cover today. So if there's anything else you guys want to put up here while I'm not looking, please feel free. Feel free. Okay, well, great. Now we can anchor a little bit here. Anything else? Otherwise, we'll go ahead and proceed. So just a quick background. So as I said, I told you already, 10 years doing product development. So I love product development. And when I moved to Europe with my lovely partner, she wanted to be close to the family. We decided to come to Europe. I'd been at the startup for 8 years. I'd gone to grad school at Berkeley, co-founded the company afterwards. And we were cranking away, I offered to open an office in Europe. The board said they didn't want to do it, and I decided to come anyway. Okay, I felt I still have a great relationship with my co-founder, the other folks, but I decided to come over here. And what I found was that the challenges that we faced on the growth side was something that I fell into. People here weren't looking for a product manager from America to do their B2B application roadmap. This is again, 10, 12 years ago. They were looking for someone that could bring them American revenue to their business. So I think I got slotted very quickly into the growth side of the business. Got 3 kids, they're all teenagers. And again, I grew up in Seattle. I went to UCLA undergraduate. I was an English literature major, if you can imagine. And I was at business school at Berkeley. From a business perspective, again, those years as a B2B guy, before that I was at IBM doing enterprise ERP stuff. I actually lived in Ukraine. I lived in Mykolaiv. I was at IBM. It was Pricewaterhouse before that. We had a large global contract doing privatization. I don't know if we're to blame for the issues there or we contributed something there. I'm not sure, but I worked literally in Mykolaiv in the mayor's office with an economic advisor back when, before I went back to grad school. And so I never imagined seeing Mykolaiv like I do on the news these days. It's very difficult to watch. In Europe, the last 10 years, I began as a nanotech VC with the ex-Philips CEO. North America, that was not a role for me. That was early stage. I was meant to be in growth, international stuff, so I moved on from that and worked as an AI lead for Oracle for a few years and then started this business. So these examples that we'll talk about. So market maturity wise, XTPL in Wrocław, they're a nanoelectronics company. They went in when the market was immature. It was early. Hugo in natural language and Adyen IoT, they hit the market right on time. Hippo, Gravity, Algolytics, they all went late. And each of those has challenges, strengths, and weaknesses. I mean, the bottom line is that when you go on time, things click. Adyen was able to become the first app on Cisco's router for their industrial solutions about 8 years ago. So the timing was there. They just happened to be there and selling into the market at the time that Cisco was opening up its boxes and allowing external applications to be put on their box. And so they got pretty lucky. It was serendipitous. Hugo happened to have some great clients in Europe. So they had spent about a year in the US trying to become the next generation of Bing. So remember Bing with Microsoft's answer to Google search and so forth. And they wanted to be an NLP bolt-on for Bing. And they spent a year trying to do it. And then they realized, oh my gosh, we've got 3 airline clients, KLM, Air France, and Lufthansa. We have 3 telco clients, Movistar, Deutsche Telekom, et cetera. Why don't we rejigger our website, focus it more on industry, and then hammer on those American players in these same industries. And within 5 months of starting that decision, we had $500,000 in revenue, ARR, repeatable from Bank of America and United Airlines. I don't think we'll ever achieve that again. It was a super fast one, and I hesitate to tell clients about it because they think in 5 months you're going to get $500,000 in ARR. But the timing was just absolutely perfect, and they managed to do things in a good way. Hippo and CMS, they came in really late. They're a Dutch company. The 3 founders met in college, started a competitor to WordPress. I mean, that the revenue streams of a company like WordPress, it's tough to charge money in a market where everyone else is doing stuff for free, right? So they had to really figure out what was their differentiation. And they had a Java-based platform, and they were in the Apache councils, and they were very active with open source. So they really took the open source angle and the Java angle and wanted to be the best in the planet for companies that had that architecture. And they also sold remotely. They sold we got Disney as a client, and we didn't even know until they told us they wanted the contract, because 10 months earlier they'd gone online, they downloaded the tools, they'd implemented the setup internally, they tested against 30 other applications they looked at, and they picked us. They gave us a call one day and they said, hey, we want $500,000, we want a contract. And it was a $500,000 contract. And they had no feet on the street in the US at all. They got it completely remotely. But they did that because they were differentiated. If they hadn't been differentiated, they would have been dead. Gravity in Budapest, a Hungarian company, they won the Netflix prize, first one in 2009, out of 30,000 entrants or something. They were all students, and there was a professor, the guy that became the CEO. And they went like traditional Hungarians, no offense to our Hungarian neighbors, you know, the Hungarians to me are wonderful at going to the right and to the left. They're like the butterfly, you know, they look both directions in terms of their market strategy. So they had customers with Alibaba, they had customers in Turkey, they had customers in Europe, and they had customers in the US, and they were like 30 people. So think about that. I mean, it was not an easy thing for them. And they were in recommendation engines, which is also a dime a dozen. It's a great market, but it's super flooded. But they were the first ones to bring deep learning to this market, the very first on the planet, as far as I know. And NVIDIA would reference them left and right as the people that really invented deep learning for cold start, GDPR compliant recommendations. So really interesting, but they came late and they had to create a differentiator in their deep learning work. Algolytics, I'm not going to get into algolytics now, but there's also things around company maturity, Synchronize in terms of product clarity, privacy check in terms of being a feature and not a product, Quartus being more of a consultancy and really getting more services revenue and having challenges switching over to subscription revenue, and so on and so forth. And then there's some examples of different clients and how it was that they were triggered, how they were converted. So these are things that we'll touch on throughout the session today. Large network, and also I would say we'll talk about this at the end, this idea of venture cloud. So we have a new platform that we just launched that'll help. So what we're going to teach is going to be talking about basically trying to 5x your exit value. So what industries are you working in? What business functions do you sell into? So we already heard, so law, and you're selling into, I guess you're selling to the CEO as like a sort of all-in-one service of some kind. What are some other industries that we're selling into in the room here? So anyone selling into manufacturing? Manufacturing. What about manufacturing? What about utilities and energy? Anyone in utilities, energy? What about retail e-commerce? What other areas? Any other verticals? So no travel, no, let's see, logistics. Logistics. Okay. So we're talking about what, the DHLs of the world, or like package delivery, or what kind of delivery? Any other examples? Okay, good. And the functions you sell into, who's your best title when you sell? If you have that person across the table from you and you have a whole day and they're relaxed and listening, who would that person in your best case be? What title?
R&D leaders.
R&D leaders. Did someone say CTO? CTO. Others? Okay. I mean, I'm really surprised.
CEO also.
CEO. Okay. In my mind, I would just say, and this may be a function of my biases, but so R&D leaders and the CTO, these guys are on the technical side of the business. Now, I'm assuming they have a business corollary. There's some business partner they have, someone who doesn't know the technology, but does have a extreme amount of experience in the company, 20 years in the business, and has a very senior title. Maybe they run the P&L of the business unit. So there's some business person. I tend to call them the VP of digital or the VP of transformation or something like that. So I'm just going to put that here. the transformation. And I think this will be maybe one of the big aha moments this whole day is you know, your entire go-to-market strategy has got to also include, you got to open the tent and include these guys, because without their support, these guys will never get the largest budgets that they want as quickly as they want. So, you know, generally what I see in companies, especially hardware companies or early stage companies, is they spend so much time explaining what it is that they are to their investors and to their friends and kind of clarifying what it is they're doing, that their website is very product centric. And we all know this, we've all heard this a million times, but I think unlocking that is really the job of the go-to-market strategy that you need to go through. Oh, whoops. Okay. Not having any left there, so I'll go ahead and do it this way. So I gave some examples before of the natural language company that closed that $500,000 in 12 months. What they did is they went from selling into one customer, which was Microsoft Bing, to selling into 5, which was B of A, United, and a couple of others to experiment, to ramping that up to selling into 300, using the things that they learned, and then making it an automated and repeatable process. Azeti, the company that got Cisco to put their application inside the Cisco router, they picked 25 partner targets on day one, and they spent 9 months focusing on those things, going one after the next, hitting multiple people within those companies. By the end of 9 months, they had a exclusive OEM deal with Cisco. And once they had that OEM deal, 2 other companies on the list, Intel and Dell, came running in because they could see that Cisco was doing something and they got jealous. And they spent about 1/10 the amount of time on due diligence. Cisco spent their armies of engineers to the office for 10 days at a time, and it was very nerve-wracking, as you can imagine, for the engineering team. But that led to 3 partnerships. XTPL, that was an odd one. XTPL, the CEO, they hired us. We worked with the business development lead, started doing our campaigns, our activities. One turned around and the CEO was also in California at the same time. I didn't even know he was, what's the CEO doing here? I didn't even know he was coming. We're here, why are we not getting together for dinner? It was one of those, you can imagine, it was a CEO who's very, very, skeptical and very sort of risk averse, trying to create a parallel process, do his own thing while we were doing our thing. And actually it became amazing because there was a moment where we converged what we were doing and it really blew it out. It was a beautiful, unexpected approach I'd never thought of. Kind of bothered me at first. I was like, why is the CEO not communicating to us? In other cases where people are doing, say, 2 markets at a time. So you're doing, you know, Northwestern Europe and the US, and you're kind of capturing your validations and you're baking them into your sales process simultaneously. And then if the US isn't working out, you back off and you focus on Europe. So there's a bunch of interesting different tactics I think that we can talk about there. So I've already gone through this example of the natural language company where they focused on the niche, the US market and these industries, selling into the VP of digital, focusing on those 3 vertical markets, and then landing deals and all of a sudden getting on the radar of acquisitions. So they got acquired after 12 months by a company called Right Now. They were the 2nd fastest growing SaaS company behind Salesforce at that time. They were in customer care. And then Oracle bought Right Now. And what I found was that the growth techniques we're going to talk about today became the kernel post-acquisition in the acquiring company. So we ended up being the team within the company of Right Now, 1,000-person company. We were 70 in the Netherlands. And our team of the CEO, the head of commercial, the commercial VP, the head of operations, are, I don't know, 5 to 8 people that were all involved in the sales process, from marketing and pre-sales, architecture, solutioning, et cetera. We all got sucked in to this sort of SWAT team that was then within Right Now pushing this new wonderful widget into the hands of the sales force. Because you know the sales guys, they don't want to bring in something they aren't familiar with and sell it to their client. You're stepping on their turf the moment you do that. So we had to use that team and work in coordination, and then right now got bought by Oracle for like $1 billion. And the same thing happened. Our team in the natural language group ended up becoming the global engine within Oracle that was pushing these new solutions into the organization. So when you're building these growth muscles, you're also helping yourselves as founders, because unless you're planning to be acquired and you become the R&D center for the acquirer, and so you don't really need to worry about sales, most likely some of your cash in your pocket will be based on the results after you're acquired, and you'll want to have a very strong growth team to help execute and meet the expectations from your acquirer. We can go, okay, wonderful, thank you. Those are just some examples for you. Now, okay, so who has customers in the rest of the world? So outside of Poland. Okay, great. So guys, how did you get that client? How did it happen?
Well,
Go ahead and stand up if you like. Yeah, maybe say your name and the company.
Vegas, I'm a law firm management. If anybody knows the first, you can always send it to us. So yeah, well, we did inbound. We targeted global keywords, and they start coming in. That's the first wins we had.
simple hack.
That's his first step.
And I mean, I guess it was pretty straightforward because, you know, you're targeting law firms. So
Yeah.
it's not like you're going to get a,
Well, yeah,
retail.
Typical drill, you target your competitor keywords, right?
Yeah.
All the typical stuff. There's no miracles.
Yeah.
And of course, after the rest of the world for us is our region where we sandbox the markets.
Yeah.
We see more influx of people coming than we target with outbound and campaigns and all the rest of the stuff.
Yes. Anyone else? And this client was which country?
First client.
The international, the one that's outside of Poland. Which country was it in? You have
That's a
lots
good
of.
question.
Okay.
We forgot already which one.
Are you? You're in 70 countries. Oh, amazing. I remember the first one. Other people, who's got clients outside of Poland? Yeah, where is the client?
We have in Mexico.
Mexico. Yeah, you mentioned Mexico. And how did that happen?
It was outbound, so cold calling
Okay.
through social selling, and I would say the trick there was high quality prospecting. So at the very beginning of the fishing pot, we selected the SMB property.
But also timing was on our favor because they were in the process with the competitor that we finally.
Okay. Yeah, the timing. Oh man, that moment where they've got budget and they're actually looking for stuff.
Yeah,
Oh,
exciting.
boy. Yeah, it's a great moment that one. So other examples of, yes.
Yes, I'm Darius, and so our first customer was in Sweden. It was network of like our contacts, but generally we just go to exhibitions, the worldwide exhibitions. We have distributors who have their contacts. So we have customers in Korea, China, US.
Wow, Korea and the US. I mean, can you are you selling into and supporting clients in Asia and North America?
Yeah, we have to. Right? So
Wonderful.
that's we are globally and working with distributors for us. It's very important.
Yes.
So technical technology.
And how do you when you work with your distributors, do you sell direct also, or you just sell through channel partners?
So it's a mixture.
It's a
So
mixture.
we want to have distributors because this is a channel that can help us with after sales as well.
Mhm.
And take off some notes from what we do directly. It's a mixture.
That's awesome. Other examples? Clients? Okay, great. So yeah, I mean, a lot of times companies either consciously outbound or they do an inbound initiative. They get these clients, and but it doesn't mean that they've firmly decided they want to focus on that industry. What we're talking about today is when you make that decision to focus on a niche and make it happen.